Hey, this is Ryan at St. Paul College. You know, our faculty and staff offer an extraordinary breadth of expertise in a number of different subjects. I'm here today at the Career Services Center, and while campus is still mostly closed, we can still take advantage of that expertise. Today we're going to sit down with two guests to talk about resumes, how to make yours and how to make yours stand out from the crowd. Come on, let's go take a look.
So here we are. I'm recording from the dark and scary basement of my house because we're not on campus right now. But that doesn't mean we can't provide some resources for our students and we can't talk to some very special guests. Today I've got Kim Turner-Rush, who's a faculty member in our business department, and I've got Cheryl Saul, who's the director of career services at St. Paul College. And we are here today to talk a little bit about resumes. Tell me, why do I need a resume and what does it do for me?
The main purpose of a resume is to get you an interview. So you're showing that you're interested in the job while providing just a glimpse, an overview of the qualifications and skills that you would bring to the table.
And I would add to that the purpose of a resume, again, is to get you into their space, to get you an interview, to get you heard. And so the key terms that you use and the action that you show that you've done in prior positions is really going to help you get your foot in that door.
When I've been looking at some jobs while we're on quarantine, I see that a lot of them require you to put in your resume into an online system, like an automated system. How do I make sure that my resume gets seen by the automated system? What keywords should I be putting in there?
You're going to pull those right from the job description or the posting. So if I say that I'm looking for someone in a customer service field, then you want to highlight any and all customer service activity that you have done using those key terms that are tied to the job description. So that when that computer or that first glance person is taking a look, that's what they're looking for. They're looking for those matching terms.
And I would just add to that, to follow the instructions on the application. If they say to upload in a Word format, then be sure that you're using a Word format or PDF or rich text or what have you.
I think the other piece to note is that a lot of the templates that we find students using are tables. Mm-hmm. And that's going to cause some havoc with those computer generated fields
with the system. So
yes, so don't use a template that has tables.
Okay. How could I tell if my template has tables?
If you're using a Word document, they'll show up as a table. You'll see the grid lines, you'll see it's hard to format, you can't move things around easily. So you want to make sure that you're using a simple Word document that you can then save as a rich text format or as a PDF, whatever they're asking for.
I had a job ask for a CV one time. What's the difference between a CV and a resume?
The biggest difference between the two is length. A resume is ideally one page or maybe two. A CV doesn't really have a limit to the number of pages, but it's going into a lot more detail regarding things like research, publications, leadership on projects. So a CV is more common for a job that's a little more professional level.
Yeah, I would say in the CV, you're going to see things highlighted like publications or research that you've done. Coming right out of college or looking for your first professional position, you're not going to need to complete a CV. A resume is going to be what they're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Cheryl, you said something about the length of my resume, and that makes me very nervous. How long is my resume supposed to be?
Ideally, one page. And I would say not more than two unless it's a job that's a more professional level. You want to keep it as concise as possible and as focused to that job as you possibly can. So 2 pages should be plenty in order to do that.
Absolutely. And you're going to want to put that most relevant information at the top so that it's not hard to find, it's not buried. So if I'm looking for customer service skills, they're easy for me to locate.
So Kim, you said at the top of my resume, I should put the most important things. Sometimes I've seen people put resumes out that have a summary or an objective at the top. Do I need one of those? And what's that for?
And I'm going to say that depends. So if you've had a lot of different experience and you are transferring from one industry to another, a summary statement is nice because you can use those key terms to sort of highlight the transferable skills that you're going to bring with you. If you are 2 pages and you're trying to get it down to 1, just take it off. It's not necessary. It's a nice to have if you have the space and you're trying to highlight those skills.
Right. And I would just add that the whole purpose of that is to really grab the reader's attention. So what you want to do is show your enthusiasm for this particular job. In other words, it needs to be tailored for that job, but you want to convince the reader that they need to continue reading, where they're going to see more detail.
Cheryl, Kim said I should talk about my transferable skills. What is a transferable skill, and do I have any?
Oh, most definitely you have many of them. So a transferable skill is just simply something that you've used at one job or maybe even through a volunteer opportunity that's applicable to the next job. So especially things related to working with people, communication skills, working as a team, attention to detail, those are very transferable. So you want to be able to help the reader understand how your previous experience qualifies you for this next one.
Yeah, and one thing I tell my students is a good example of that is someone will say to me, well, I've been a cashier in a retail store. That's attention to detail, right? So you're knowing that your drawer is right and that you've counted the change appropriately and that you've got things where they need to be. That is attention to detail. So if I'm asking for someone who has attention to detail, highlight that. Those are transferable skills.
How do I focus on actions I did at a job? So you talked about having transferable skills and how those can apply. How do I focus more on actions than just sort of what the job description said I did?
So a lot of that is your language. So using action-oriented terms. So you applied, if you created a process or you highlighted a process that improved customer service satisfaction on a survey, highlight that. It doesn't have to be measurable, but something that you can show improved the quality of either the customer's experience or the employee experience.
Mm-hmm. And I would just add that, looking at your job description gives you some idea of the tasks that you've done, but it's really just a sounding board or a launching place really for identifying how you did that skill, or how, I like to say how much, how many, or how often, because you want to get at the a little bit more depth than just simply the task. Think about the result of your doing that job well.
What does it mean to be results oriented? I've seen that phrase a bunch of times, Cheryl. What do you mean by that?
Well, it's one thing to say that you've done something, but it's another thing to give an example of how you've used that skill. So getting at the result of your doing the work well is what you want to show the employer, the reader. They are looking for you to help them connect the dots between your past and what they need right now. So anything that you can do to show that you're the best candidate for the job, they need to pick up the phone and call you, that's what you want to include.
And I would add to that, if you've been nominated for awards, if you have been promoted from one position to another position, those are things that show those outcomes.
I think some of our students might be graduating or leaving St. Paul College without a lot of job experience. Their resume might not have a lot on it yet because they just finished college.
Right.
What can you do to sort of make your resume stand out when you don't have a lot of job experience?
You're going to pull from your coursework. So what are the relevant courses? What did you take that directly apply to or gave you the knowledge to be successful in that job? You're going to highlight any work or any volunteer work, any community engagement, which is really big right now with corporations and organizations. You want to tell them that you are not just going home at night and watching reruns. You are actually improving on the knowledge that you're getting by putting those into action.
Right now, there's a lot of strangeness happening in the. I'm going to take this over again. Hang on. 3, 2, 1. Right now, obviously, we've got some pretty big changes to the world. We're recording this from our houses because there is a pandemic, and some of us are. Hang on, I don't like how this is going. I had to get this intro down. All right, I'm sorry. Had it the first time. 3, 2, 1. So we're recording this from our homes because there is some big changes going on in the world right now. And for a lot of people, that's meant that they've become unemployed or they have had some trouble finding a job. That's going to result for some people in some gaps in their resume. How do you address those gaps in a resume if you were out of work for some period of time for whatever reason?
Well, the main thing to think about here is to not lie. You don't want to misrepresent information on your resume. But I think it's okay to acknowledge that there's a gap. Sometimes that's more appropriate in a cover letter than in a resume, but think about the things that you are doing during this time. Are you using the time to improve on a skill? Are you managing a household with several children that have schoolwork and you're doing you're homeschooling? Maybe you're involved in a community initiative. Those are really good things to show what you're doing, how you're using your time now during a stay-at-home period.
Mm-hmm. And I would just add that for those who are in that situation, is seeking out those opportunities for further learning, for improving on your skills. There are a lot of organizations right now who are offering free seminars, free webinars on various topics. And so you can always utilize those on a resume as part of building your skill set.
What kind of personal information should I put on a resume?
This one's tricky. So I always tell my students to leave it to the basics. I need to know who you are and how to contact you. So this isn't your interview. So I need to know who you are, your name, first and last name, full mailing address, your telephone number, and your email. So a lot of companies will email you as well as attempt to call. If you are like my children, you do not answer your telephone if you don't know the number that's calling, and you're not likely to have Target's corporate headquarters number in your telephone. So if you're not going to answer, a lot of times corporations know that, and HR is going to email you as well to let you know they're trying to get a hold of you. So how can I reach you? What's the best way?
Mm-hmm. Things that I would stay away from are things that are illegal for the recruiter to ask. So marital status, religion, age, whether you have a disability, those are questions that they are not allowed to ask, and we don't want to volunteer that information.
Right, and I would also not include a picture. Unfortunately, or fortunately, right, we have some unconscious bias that might prevent someone from reaching out to someone simply by seeing a photograph. And while you might have a LinkedIn page with a photograph, or you might have a video resume out there, those are fine to link to, because by that point they've read your resume and they want more information, and that's what they're looking for.
I think you have some examples of some resumes. Can we take a look at some and what we should be doing?
Absolutely. So we can start with one. We talked a little bit earlier about not having a lot of job experience. So this is an actual resume that someone submitted for feedback. And if you were to get this resume, it's not going to make it through either the computer generated or the human eye task of pulling out resumes that are relevant. So it's even the way it's formatted, nothing is bold, nothing stands out to me as the employer. So we offer up some advice for students who don't have a lot of experience. And this is the feedback for the same resume. So you can see what a big difference there is in just the formatting. So if we take out the things that we added just the formatting alone, this looks much more professional, much cleaner. We did add that summary statement to this one. The student's position was for customer service. And so we wanted to highlight that I do have customer service experience. It may be limited, but I am also completing a degree. So I am not only working, but I'm managing my time between work and school. As Cheryl mentioned earlier, to have those most relevant pieces up front and closest to the top, we pulled out those relevant courses that the student has taken. So look at what is in your required coursework or things that you've taken that apply directly to the position. The one thing I still don't like about this resume is I don't have a lot of information about the volunteer service. So what kind of volunteering were you doing? What were the tasks involved, and how can we translate those skills?
And you move the education to the top. Is that because that piece of information is more relevant to the jobs that job seeker was looking for at that point?
Yes, so this student was looking to jump industries. So from food industry as a produce stocker, trying to make the jump into a more professional customer service desk job. Those were his words. And so thinking about that, what's going to be more relevant? Is it going to be more relevant to pull out that coursework that shows that while I may not have a lot of experience in accounting, I do have the foundational knowledge in those courses? Cheryl, do you want to add anything to this one?
I think you've done a good job on this, yeah.
And then we have one more, and that one is an example of someone who has 2 pages. So a 2-page resume that we really want to sort of boil down. And you can see, while the formatting is much better than the first example. So this one, we would take a look at what is the job you're applying for, what are the most relevant pieces that need to be highlighted. Again, this student was moving from one industry to another, moving from insurance and more of a sales position into an office role. What I did like about this original document is, while she called it a qualifying or qualification profile instead of a summary, which is fine, she pulls out those keywords. Even though it's not a sentence, someone's going to pick up on that. I have the ability to demonstrate accuracy in my work, attention to detail, right? All of those pieces. And for me, the biggest piece on this was formatting, was how she had formatted the resume. So we'll move to the after. And so you can see by the formatting, there's not a big, your eye doesn't jump like they did with the first one, like there's such a huge difference. But again, highlighting that she does have a degree in accounting. She does have training that is related to what she's going to be applying for. And then following that up with her experience, switching up the margins just a little bit, reframing how we worded things, and it's now 1 page.
Great, thank you. Cheryl, if a student is at St. Paul College and is looking to work on their resume or work on any kind of career search, what kind of resources do we offer in your department?
We have a lot of resources. First of all, I'm happy to meet with students one-on-one, and they can reach me from our college homepage or from the career services page on our website. My contact information is there. I do like to set up an appointment, so we can do that either by calling or emailing me, and then we'll set up a virtual meeting so we can share screens and so on. We also have a lot of resources online. So our job board, it's called Jobs Online, has not only the jobs, but also a resume template, lots of tip sheets and resume examples. There are also lots of webinars coming up. So I've started a virtual job search club, and that includes a weekly a get together on Tuesdays. I'm calling it Tuesdays at 2, where we just pick a topic and discuss some resources or ways to address a concern related to a job search. We also offer many career fairs throughout the year. So this fall, they're going to be virtual fairs, which is good practice for all of us to become more familiar with the virtual platforms. And most of them will have a specific focus. So they might be related specifically to culinary arts or nursing assistant jobs. So, so you don't have to file through lots and lots of employers in order to find the types of jobs you're looking for.
And I would
Great.
just add on to that, if I may, that we do offer some courses embedded in our programs. A lot of the programs will either embed the resume building into a class, or in the business department, we have a course, a 1 credit hour course. It's career oriented for business majors, but I have a lot of students who are not business majors who take that course as well. We talk about figuring out your own mission and values and how those need to align for you to have some balance and some mindfulness and peace in your work life. And then we also spend a lot of time on crafting that cover letter to go with your resume.
Great. If you are a current St. Paul College student, Cheryl, they can get all those resources at stpaul.edu/career services. Is that right?
That's correct, yes.
Great. Well, I want to thank you so much for being on here. Great time talking to you today. And thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
having me. Mhm.
Have a good day.
You too.
You too.